Welcome to the Rime Buddhist Center's Dharma Talk podcast, Achieving Peace Through Compassion. This podcast is a recording of the Dharma Talks given during our Sunday service.
So my Dharma talk today is entitled Amidst the Storm, the Stillness Speaks. Now at first this sounds quite poetic, but there's a lot of deep truth involved in this title. The storm represents the chaos, the conflict, the fear, the uncertainty that's kind of swirling around us in our lives right now. And the stillness is not the absence of that difficulty. It's actually the inner refuge that we can return to, no matter how loud the world gets. And that was our practice this morning, that first guided meditation was really beginning to sort of examine that. This phrase, the stillness speaks, points to something powerful that each of us hold, that calm center where we can respond with clarity, compassion, rather than from fear or anger. It's the eye of that storm, that quiet, grounded center where our own innate wisdom lives. And it's from this place that we can act, not blindly, but mindfully. And that's what our journey that we are exploring today is all about. How do we act with stillness, not reaction? Because we live in a world, right, that demands from us action all the time. Do something, say something, fix it now. And of course, action is important. Silence in the face of injustice is not neutrality. It's complicity. I have a t-shirt that I still wear after years of doing protests around AIDS, the AIDS crisis that taking place. And it says silence equals death. It means we are complicit if we don't say anything. But action without stillness, without reflection, becomes reactionary. And when we react out of rage and fear, and at some point or another, we're going to get exhausted, our actions become unintentional. And they add to the suffering of those around us. So how do we engage in this world without becoming consumed by it? It's a simple answer, but it's not always easy. We have to cultivate stillness. Not to escape the world, but to actually begin to serve it better. There's this great parable that the Buddha, it's about the Buddha and an angry man. And I think it really illustrates this principle, this idea of stillness, really nicely. One day the Buddha was giving a teaching to a crowd when a man approached him. This man was angry. He was furious. He even shouted insults to Buddha, called the Buddha a fraud, a false prophet. He hurled every verbal weapon he could find to try and provoke a response. But the Buddha didn't act. He just stood in silence, fully present and calm. Then when the man had finished his tirade, the Buddha looked at him with compassion and asked, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" Now this angry man was a bit confused, but he answered, "It remains with the one who offered it." And the Buddha nodded, agreeingly, and he said, "In the same way, if I do not accept your anger, it remains with you." Let's just think about that for a second. Now the Buddha didn't ignore the man. He didn't suppress his own feelings, but he also didn't absorb it and throw the rage back at this guy. He transformed that encounter, not by force, but by stillness. So right there, this is not a passive act. This is power. This is the power of grounded awareness. Stillness in that moment spoke more than any sort of argument the Buddha could have presented. So how, in the midst of this storm that we are living in right now, this ocean that's turbulent, how do we find stillness? It's through meditation. And what that story shows us is that meditation isn't just a personal wellness tool. It's actually a revolutionary practice. Because in meditation, we train ourselves to return again and again to the center of the storm that's around us. Much like that meditation today, we breathe, we sit, we watch our thoughts, we feel our fears. We watch as our anger arises, as it comes and it goes. And when we sit with that for a period of time, we come to the realization that we are not the storm. We're the eye. Our meditative space allows us to see this clearly, so that when we get triggered by an event, whether it be the news, whether it be work, whether it be at home, we learn to pause. We catch it at that first moment of agitation, and we breathe. And we choose how we're going to respond. We breathe and we realize that we're not going to let our emotions dictate our actions. We pause and then we ask ourselves, is this response aligned with my values? Is this response aligned with the values of the Bodhisattva? Or am I reacting out of a place of fear? Am I reacting out of a place of anger? Or am I responding with clarity, with wisdom, with kindness, with generosity? Meditation strengthens our emotional resilience. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't experience or feel anger or sadness, but for me, it means that I don't have to drown in them. Take anger, for example. When we're sitting in meditation, it teaches us to notice it's arising. I start to feel a tightness in my chest. There's a little heat behind my eyes. And then I get into this mental loop of judgment of all of those things and all the stuff I'm going to do. But on the cushion, when that happens, instead of jumping up and lashing out or stuffing it, we just witness it. We learn that anger is that wave that rises, peaks, and then passes away. And it's in that awareness, that sort of watching of that wave, that we begin to create space to reflect, space to soften our hearts, space to choose compassion instead of retaliation. Just like the Buddha in the story, he didn't deny that anger was in that moment, but he didn't let it control him either. So how do we interconnect this meditation with compassionate action? Well, this stillness, when we're still like this, and the meditation that I did today, that sort of third sort of stanza of that, began to reveal something really profound, that we are deeply interconnected, that you have your storm and I have my storm, and we also have our own calming eyes within those storms. That when we sit long enough, we begin to understand that we're not separated from other people, that their suffering is not separate from ours. But we also realize that their healing is our healing, and our healing is their healing. So this understanding automatically gives rise to compassion. And not just a feeling of compassion, but compassion through action. It shifts how we react to conflict. How do we show up to conflict? It transforms our judgment into being curious about someone else. It replaces blame with understanding. And when we act from this space, our actions ripple outward in a completely different way. We also need to begin to cultivate this stillness, because the storm isn't going away. It's there. It's continuing to arrive. And so we need to be able to conserve our energy here. But it also allows us to realize that this too shall pass. One of the great things of Buddhism for me has always been the idea of impermanence. And that stillness teaches us impermanence. Emotions, crises, circumstances, even the most painful storms in our lives pass. Meditation helps us to stabilize and internalize this, not intellectually, but experientially. It's through sitting on the cushion that we begin to trust the rhythm of things. We stop gripping so tightly to those things that are difficult. And instead of thinking, this is never going to end, we start to remember that this too shall pass. That gives us strength. That gives us patience. It also gives us hope to know that what may be really challenging and turbulent and stormy will change. So our job is to take all this stuff and not escape from the storm. We just don't get to live in this bubble of calm all the time. We're going to be thrown about. And much like our meditation, we just have to return to that stillness again and again and again and again, so that our words, our choices, and our presence aren't the echoes of that chaos that's around us, but a clear expression of a peace that's within. So let the stillness speak, not just with silence, but with actions that are grounded in clarity, compassion, and courage. In a world so full of noise, may that silence and stillness be the most powerful voice of all. I thank you all. May you have a blessed day.
Thank you for listening to the Rime Buddhist Center's Dharma Talk podcast. Music was provided by Barefoot Bran Music. Please consider supporting the Rime Buddhist Center by making a donation at our website at www.rimecenter.org/donate.